Welcome back to TAKEdown MMA. This is our third and final segment. It's gonna kind of be a mixed bag of MMA. Once again, Evan Herzog of the Fight Magazine, Albert Rosales of Grinders Fitness. Let's start out by talking a little bit about this crazy incident that happened in LFA over the weekend. Apologize, we don't have the exact names, but it begs to be talked about. In a fight that wasn't, I think it was off air.
It was a post-limb fight, so it was a prelim fight that was after the main event, right?
Right. What would have already been an interesting finish, because we had the fighter, and I apologize, the fighter who ended up getting knocked out, he does a leg sweep, and he goes down with a hammer fist, and he catches the knee of Chapman. He's knocked out. You can tell on the replay he's knocked out. So that alone is going to be talked about in MMA. Right. When anybody gets like a freak knockout like that, when you almost knock yourself out on somebody's head, whatever, taking someone down, right. We've seen that. That's enough. But what happened after the fight was finished is what was crazy. We saw the victim of the knockout laying face down on his stomach, and we saw the victor in the fight stand up, not just walk onto, he kind of jumped up into the middle of the spine of his knocked out opponent, and then did like a I don't even know what they call it in the WWE, but some sort of like Suntai bomb flip thing where you jump off the spine and kind of butt bomb the dude. He missed him, but my God, that was one of the craziest things I've ever seen anybody do after a fight. What was he thinking?
Well, so let's go. First of all, if we think about the rules, okay? So they tell you in the rules meeting directly, no attacks to the spine. No attacks to the spine. That's during the fight.
During the fight?
What makes you think when a guy's unconscious you can do that? Okay, like if the fight was still going, if the guy was still, he still had his senses, he was still conscious, and he's awake and fighting back, but he's the belly down, you wouldn't be allowed to jump on his back. You would get disqualified. So the guy ended up winning the fight and then got disqualified. So he ended up losing anyways. He got what he deserved. But you know what? To me, this is a huge problem that is kind of taken over combat sports in general. And I have a huge, huge problem with it. It's just the disrespect in fighting. It's just, like, I understand, listen, they're all alpha males. They're all fighters. Everybody that does this kind of sport is an alpha. Okay, so there's going to be some bit of trash talking. There's going to be some, there's going to be a lot of machismo. There's going to be a lot of this kind of stuff, a lot of trash talking, that kind of stuff. But to me, there's levels. Okay, so, obviously, like, you should never spit on a fighter. You should never sucker punch a fighter. To have a guy unconscious, to jump on his back and do a front flip on top of him, like, to me, that's unreal. As soon as I saw that, the first words out of my mouth were that guy should be suspended minimum a year. Minimum a year. And then on top of that, these are heavyweight fighters.
Yeah, that's
like crazy. That's freaking 230 pounds of man jumping on your back. But if you look across all the organizations, whether it's boxing, MMA, look in the UFC, you've got Colby Covington, disrespectful. Trashing an entire country. You've got, if you go to Bellator, you've got Michael Venom Page dancing in the cage. Like his
throwing a pokeball at Cyborg
when his skull is
literally crushing. Now, he didn't realize that. It doesn't matter, dude. Come on, like, get some class.
You've got the same thing in boxing. You've got your guys out there. If you know how to talk trash and you can do it to a point without actually disrespecting somebody entirely, And to me, that's the whole problem with where our sport is going these days. Is just nobody knows where the line is anymore. You just keep moving that line, moving that line, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. And to me, that's the ugly part of the game. I can deal with the politics. I can deal with the interim titles. I can deal with the super fights. All the BS that I complain about all the time. It's just part of the sport. But man, where the sportsmanship and that kind of stuff, I made a post about it on Facebook, and I was just saying, to me, fighters are like modern day samurai. They're gladiators. There should be some honor in what you're doing. There should be some honor and some pride in what you're doing. You can win a fight and still be hyped up without disrespecting your fighter, you know. And to me, I think that's what we're losing in this sport. And it kind of goes honestly with society as a whole nowadays is, you know, people just don't have respect anymore.
And it's different levels. Like you said, levels of respect. I get the talk prior to the fight.
Right.
They're going to
You have to sell a fight.
Sure. And you can sell it by being respectful. Sometimes people like that route. Sometimes people like a real, genuine, like, when I'm watching, I'm like, dang, these guys really don't like each other. This is going to be a fun fight. That goes back to the schoolyard type of feeling when you're at lunch and you're like, oh, you know, my buddy's about... It's I get that part of it. After the fight, that's when it's supposed to be done.
Right.
And whether you know, obviously there's extreme levels where you stand on someone's spine and do a front flip and try to, you know, Yokozuna land on the guy's back while he's unconscious, or there's, you know, dating back to like Miesha Tate, Ronda Rousey, where Ronda Rousey almost breaks Misha's arm and then won't shake her hand.
Right.
And shoves it away. There's different levels of it, and I don't think there's a place for any of it. If Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz can do what they did, and I think they respect each other for money, but I think Nate Diaz really doesn't like Conor. I think he genuinely thinks he took the brothers' kind of game plan. We heard it from the very start. You're taking everything I worked for.
Right.
You know, but look at them at the end of their second fight. Grab each other, Nate Diaz rubbing his head. Those guys went to war.
Right.
Have some respect. Have some class. Know that the fight is scheduled for 15 to 25 minutes. You have that time to beat someone with your fists, your elbows, your knees. You can choke someone until they tap out or are unconscious. This is an unforgiving sport where you can be a savage. You don't need to continue it once that final bell has rang.
Right.
Period. There's just no place for it in the sport. And I love the trash talk. I love the build-up. We kind of separate a little bit on some of the fighters that we kind of like and how they build the fights. But we both agree on, after the fight's over, you guys just went to war with each other. Respect each other. Shake the hand. Even if you still dislike them, even if that 15 to 25 minutes wasn't quite enough for you, shake the hand, move on. Maybe there'll be another one. But if you do things like stand on someone's spine and then flip onto them, maybe there should never be another one for you. Maybe you just proved that you don't know where you need to stop, chill out, and respect the other person.
Listen, man, I know everybody makes mistakes. Everybody makes a bad decision here and there.
Of course.
That's a big mistake.
And he smiled after it. You see him?
And even as far as my team goes, I don't like my guys talking trash.
Right.
I don't like them coming out making predictions. You know, I want my guys to be confident, but just to come out and manufacture drama, just to manufacture drama, to me, if your fighting can't sell a fight, then you need to do something about your fighting. And I understand, like, every once in a while you run into somebody who you just don't like, and there's just natural tension there and natural dislike. You know, so I understand there's going to be a little bit there. But honestly, if you're a good fighter and you're an exciting fighter, your fighting speaks for itself.
In the words...
There's no reason that you have to manufacture anything.
Right. In the famous words of Nick Diaz, you don't got to sell wolf tickets.
Right.
If your fighting speaks for yourself, you don't have to go out there and pump up some false thing. I think some people wear themselves out trying to sell the fight before the fight even happens.
Well, everybody wants to be the next Conor McGregor, the next Muhammad Ali, the next Floyd Mayweather. These are guys that could talk, knew they could talk, and they knew how to sell a fight. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants to kind of take their blueprint and add their little spin to it. But let me say this, like, there's only one Conor McGregor. There was only one Muhammad Ali. There's only one Floyd Mayweather. Whether you like them, dislike them, whatever your case may be, they did things the way they did, and they were innovators. You know, so for you to go out there and just try and plagiarize what they're doing, you know, it's got to come natural. If it's manufactured, it's just not the same, you know. So, and I think that's where people are starting to cross the line, is because they don't know how to do it and actually sell a fight. They're just talking trash just to talk trash. And that's where you come out with the Colby Covingtons who wreck an entire country and call the country trash and all the people in it, you know. And then that's where my problem is.
Then you got like Clay Guida, who's never spoke a bad word about anybody, jumping out, calling out Nate Diaz and making marijuana comments to him and all this. I'm just like, what is the world we're living in right now? It's crazy. I love it. I hate it. It's MMA in general. Hopefully people learn from others' mistake as far as sportsmanship goes in this sport, and we see less and less of what happened over the weekend going forward. That's going to do it for our third and final segment of the week. This has been Takedown MMA. Evan Herzog, Albert Rosales. Catch us on IBTV.us and Roku. Thanks for joining us.